Tree of Savior is a failure that deserves a second chance, but how much of a chance? Hello, how's it going everyone, and welcome to the 2018 Tree of Savior review. A quick notice to those of you who are new to the channel is that I've already done a Tree of Savior review, but it was in a completely different context before many updates to the game, so I decided to review the game again from scratch. So let's get it going. Tree of Savior is a Ragnarok inspired game released in 2016. The launch generated big hype and the game had over 50k players during its first weeks. The game's character style seems to be really influenced by anime, with many cute looking enemies, colorful outfits, and weirdly sexualized art, but all that is kind of expected from a Korean MMO. Us Western players access the game via Steam, and there are servers on South America, North America, Europe, Southeast Asia. So, the game features a fantasy world filled with monsters and magic, with a main story that circles around angels and demons fighting amongst mortals, but at the same time there's a kind of Final Fantasy-esque technology theme with many steam machines and firearms. The graphics and environments look really sweet. It's a cool 2D style, even though all the animations and objects are actually 3D. Several maps have amazing visuals with climate effects or leaves flying all around. It allows for a great experience of just enjoying looking at a beautiful scenery while mobs explode, which is also one of the best feelings I've ever had in MMORPGs. Hitting a critical attack with an overkill on a mob in Tree of Savior and watching it explode in a million pieces. The character voices and sound effects are also very fitting to the style, but all characters sound like children, which combined with the way some graphics are sexualized gets weird if you think about it. But at the same time, I don't think they ever get bad. The game doesn't rub this kind of stuff in your face in any way, so the sound effects and graphics in general are a very positive point. The music can be a little off at times, but this is a very strong characteristic of Korean MMOs. High fantasy themes mixed with electronic music, which when combined with the gameplay progression based around heavy grinding, kinda makes sense. The character evolution works on a rank system. When you create a character, you can choose between 4 classes: Swordsman, Wizard, Cleric, or Archer. As you level, you have the opportunity on fixed levels of advancing your rank and choosing another class within your class tree. You can upgrade your current class or get a new one within the tree of the initial choice. As an example, when starting as a wizard, you'll be able to eventually get multiple levels of the wizard class and also have the option of choosing other types of wizard, such as pyromancer, cryomancer, elementalist, and so on. There's a total of 9 character ranks in the game, and with each rank new classes are added to the pool from which you can choose to customize your character. So when you reach levels up to 300 plus, you have a nice level of depth in your build. Exploring maps is one of the most important mechanics of the game, since you get rewards based on how many and which maps you fully explore. This has its ups and downs, since maps are at the same time very linear and somewhat confusing in their navigation. A positive point is that when a map is unexplored, the game displays kind of a mist on the minimap, so that you don't get to know exactly how maps look before exploring them, but you at least get a general idea of how they're shaped so you don't get completely lost. The monster design can be creative, but after some time you realize that you've seen the same style of boss several times. You may face a huge werewolf monsters tree at level 10, and another level 50, another level 100. This made me feel a little weird while playing through the game. If bosses don't feel unique, beating them gets a little less rewarding. What's the point? But I will get back on bosses in a second. We can divide quests between story and side quests. Story quests obviously get you around and tell you the main story of the game, what's happening in the world, why you're here and why you're needed. These can be required to open some maps that you may or may not want to go to, but in no way you actually have to follow the main story to play the game. If you want, you can just ignore it, honestly. The side quests are just another way to get you to stop grinding for a bit and give you levels and silver in different ways. The biggest thing about these quests is that they give you experience cards. Those XP cards use it to be the main form of leveling in the game. They're divided in levels, and areas give you experience cards according to the level of the players who are supposed to be doing them. There are enough quests to fill the leveling holes. There are other methods leave, and the main story quests can be interesting. You won't be getting World of Warcraft or Tibia levels of lore here, let's be realistic, but it's nice. Dungeons are instanced maps where you fight your way through small creatures and you finally defeat one or multiple bosses in the ending. They're meant to be done in groups of 1 to 5 players, and being in a party with the auto-matching system is better because it provides bigger bonuses. There's also an interesting mechanic in dungeons where the common mobs don't drop anything or give experience, but the final boss gives drops and experience according to how much of the dungeon was cleared. This leaves space for people to clear separate rooms of the dungeon simultaneously, making for way faster runs. The first dungeon available is as soon as your character hits level 50, and the access of all dungeons is done through an NPC in the main city of Klaipeda. This is another one of those things with positive and negative points to it. It's really good to allow you to have access to all dungeons instead of having to go all the way through corners of random maps in order to only then find out that a certain dungeon queue is empty. At the same time, it feels like this removes some of the need for players to actually go through the game world. Quests are not a requirement. The main character story doesn't really give you anything that you would miss out on. So what reason would there be to actually go to places? Not much. The good thing is that there's a big level gap between dungeons, which kind of forces you to at least grind a bit somewhere else or do a couple of quests here and there to fill the gaps. This is where I can talk about hunting grounds. Hunting grounds are fast spawns with lots of loot and good experience. They're sweet grind, probably the best place to go to when you want to just mindlessly kill mobs and have some stupid fun. The fact that there are so many mobs and so many item drops makes it really a pleasure to grind these maps, and not only that, but you can actually get decent equipment and okay sums of cash grinding them, while still being one of the most fun parts of the game nowadays in my opinion. One of the big pluses of this is the fact that it's a change of pace. With nothing but constant dungeons to do up to level 300 plus, at some point this would be just completely pointless, since an MMO where all you do is repeat the same 5 dungeon maps forever would be completely unbearable. Mercenary missions are just a big question mark for me right now. There seems to be absolutely no one running them, and people would just run solo mines missions for drops. The main mission, Xiaoliai, which allows you to face a sequence of bosses for experience, used to be camped heavily, but I didn't manage to find a single group for it in my playtime. And grinding it alone was completely underwhelming when compared to hunting grounds or actual dungeons. The field and world bosses seem to be a way to get you out of your normal day-to-day activities in the game, which would basically come down to grinding, allowing you to go hunting bosses around their spawn timers, competing against other players to see who finds bosses faster. This is an aspect of the game I really found fun to do. And the real world bosses are really strong, and actually being able to beat them takes some thought and equipped characters, and sometimes even a decent formed party formed for the reason of beating the world boss, in the cases where you actually have to compete with other players for the bosses. I chose to play through Savior 100% on an Xbox controller due to having mainly played Cleric and Swordsman classes. The feeling of playing on mouse and keyboard was completely off. Connecting skills properly on melee while moving with a keyboard or mouse just didn't seem to work all that nice. The movement and attacking felt great on the joystick, and it makes for a way more pleasurable experience playing the game. There are only 2 issues with the joystick experience. One is that the target selection is terrible and really not comprehensible. I could try to explain it to you, but after so many hours of game time, I felt like just moving my thumbsticks around randomly until it lands on the desired target. The other issue is that controlling all the game menus with the joystick, the controls don't move as they would on a console game or any other game that properly handles a controller. You have to switch your controller to mouse movement mode, and then you move a cursor around the screen with your thumbsticks to activate the interface. How could anyone possibly think that this is a decent idea is beyond me. As a free-to-play game, it has its restrictions. The game has sort of a subscription system, like most other MMOs, where you can buy a token to get benefits for 30 days. They include additional XP from mobs, less strict use of the marketplace to trade between players, more dungeons entry per day, amongst other things. Free players don't have restrictions on levels or classes that they can play. These tokens can also be bought in the game with in-game currency, and I believe that playing without a token is not recommended. The experience when playing with a token is many times better and more rewarding. It's possible to buy game tokens for real money and sell them in-game for silver. This translates to a direct way to buy silver, so you can imagine that this means real life money can impact the game economy. There are also other loot crate style items where you buy a box for real money and you can roll things like pets, weapon recipes, weapon improvement items and that kind of stuff. This, together with the usual impact of real money on in-game economy and the possibility of buying equipment from other players, means that there's a certain level of pay to win in Tree of Savior, as much as I don't like the actual term pay to win. But it's possible to get really strong via grind and getting equipment in game. You don't have to put money in the game in order to be able to kick ass. But as with most other MMOs, there will always be people willing to spend thousands of real life dollars to make them strong. Comparing with other games with microtransactions, I would say Tree of Savior is in the lower spectrum of pay to win, but it still has strong pay to win aspects to it. Having a community is essential to an MMO, and Tree of Savior, despite currently having a really low population, has it in several ways. The main Tree of Savior subreddit has enough people to help you with questions, tips for beginners and build help, and it also has a nice list of Discord servers, and believe me, these servers are bigger than you would think, with people talking about the game in several time zones, multiple languages, and all sorts of subjects. But one aspect TOS lacks on the community side is with the fan side. As much as people have tried, it seems like eventually leaving Tree of Savior behind is the destiny to which all fan site owners are doomed. The Western fan sites are mostly left with useless information from 2016, there doesn't seem to be any sort of movement to bring them back. It's still possible to find useful information in sites, but most of them have bad, unfriendly interface and seem to scare new players. I know that community and fan sites are not directly a product of the company that made the game, but I found it fair to talk about them on this review as they are an important part of the experience when playing the game. As far as the relationship between publisher developers with the community goes, TOS has seen it all. From looking completely abandoned in the beginning with its 60 to 50k players population during the beginning almost completely gone, the publisher eventually started paying a little more attention to players, particularly Western players, since the game is mostly focused on its original Korean community. Content is naturally delayed on Steam versions of the game due to contracts with the game developers and publishers, which constantly leads to frustrations on the player base because seeing content delivered to the players on Korean servers without any due dates to arrive on Steam. This is an unfortunate truth in this game. You can't expect the relationships between the community and the developers to never become as good as they could be because they are simply not trying hard enough. The last thing I'm gonna touch in this review is the bot and exploit situation in Tree of Savior. There are bots and exploits in every MMO, but in some of them they thrive. And as much as Tree of Savior has its code of bots, which are not few, the biggest problem is with the exploits. It's important for new players to consider that in Tree of Savior, you're taking part in an universe where players have already abused many exploits. Let me list a few so you can get a comprehension of the level where this goes. Equipping weapons in invisible equipment slots, crashing channels in order to have another chance when improving equipment, lagging out other players in PvP, being able to craft items with nothing but the recipes and selling millions and millions of silver worth of items in the marketplace, being able to attack all creatures on the screen at once, and more. So the world is somehow already tainted with multiple people that have fortunes derived from bug abuse and exploits. Some of them are still working as I make this review. So as much as pay to win is a problem, the biggest problem that was never really dealt with in Tree of Savior is the fact that the game was poorly designed, or it was rushed to be published before it was ready, which led to several severe bugs right after launch, which made most of the population quit. And this bad design is also the reason why there are so many exploits in the game. In the end, Tree of Savior is a fun little game. It has fun mechanics, great visuals, and currently an active community with lots of things to try and have fun with. It's worth a try if you like the idea of just chilling with your controller playing a grindy MMO. The game has many flaws and you will hardly ever be able to truly catch up with the top 0.1% players that are as strong as anyone can possibly be. But you can still get very strong and kick some ass and just do some daily grinding. So let me hear from you. Tell me what you think. Have you already played Thrift Savior? Are you willing to give it a try now? Are you one of the 50k players that gave up on the beginning because the game sucked? As always, I want to thank you all so much for watching. If you have comments, suggestions and criticism, please leave them in the comments. If you haven't already subscribed, please leave a subscribe so you can catch up to my next videos. Thank you so much for watching, have fun and see ya!